My next project is using a pallet that I got on the side of the yard. First thing I want to do though is I got to get this pallet cut right in half. There's 4 main supports, and once I get those cut, then I'm able to take them and split them apart. I also need to cut some trim off of these boards. Once I get that piece cut off, and I'm going to do this on both the back and the front and on each end. Once I get those cut off, then I'm able to go ahead and take one single 2x4 and I'm going to cut it into 24-inch pieces and make the mark, and then use my speed square to give a nice straight mark, and then use my jigsaw next and cut right down the line. It doesn't need to be critical, but I'm going to get 4 equal lengths of 24-inch boards, and then I'm going to mark each one at 16 inches. This is going to give me the ability to put the bench right at the same mark every time, and it's going to give it the same height. Once I take that first half of the pallet, I'm going to secure it with 2 screws on each end right at that 16-inch mark. Once I get these screws in, I want to make sure I use the 3-inch ones so they go as deep as possible into the wood, and then I'm going to turn it around and do the same on the other side. These are going to be the legs to my bench. Once I get this one secured, then I can go ahead and cut off the next part, the top part, because that's going to be the back rest of my bench. Once I cut those, I can set them in place. Now here's the critical part. Instead of going up straight up and down, I'm going to put it at about a 10-degree angle and secure it. That's going to give it a nice little back rest so you're not hunched over. I'm going to secure this also with 2 3-inch screws on each side. Don't worry about the markings, we're going to take care of that. Now it's time for the armrest. I'm going to mark that at 19 and 20 inches, and I don't want just some boring armrest. I'm going to go ahead and cut some dog ears on it. So I'm going to use that speed square to get me some 45-degree angles, and back to the jigsaw and cut those off. I'm going to set them in place, but since this is a soft wood, I want to make sure that I pre-drill first and put those screws in. Once I get them nice and secure in there, guess what? What I'm going to do is make sure that I get this trim board on the front just to cover any voids. And then it is time for that sanding. I'm just going to use some 80 grit, rough up the sides and the top, round the edges, and then because I've got different color wood on here, and spray paint it a nice gray color, it's going to match our decor. A lot of people might say stain, but this wood is rough, so let's go ahead and paint it. It's going to make it nice to the outdoors, keep it kind of water resistant, and it's going to protect it from the harsh California UV rays. Once I get it painted, guess what? It's time to put it in place, and I'm going to decorate it with some outdoor pillows, put them right there, and look at this thing. Can you believe that I built this from 1 pallet, 1 2x4, and 1 piece of scrap wood? Don't throw those pallets away. You can turn them into some nice furniture. I hope this inspired you to make your own pallet outdoor furniture.
I grabbed a pallet, removed the boards on the backside, and marked the edges of the wood slats to match up flush with the center support board. I used a circular saw to cut the pallet in half lengthwise, but I wasn't able to get the boards completely flush, so I ended up using a jigsaw. I used 2 pieces of the extra support board and placed them vertically at the end of the pallet. I used a square to mark the angle to cut the leg in order for it to sit flush on the ground. I added a support board between the 2 legs for extra stability and added supports on either end of the opposite side of the pallet. I screwed them together and then added slats all the way to the top using a rough 2x4 to evenly space them all the way up. Now I have the most affordable patio chair that I can enjoy all season long. I hope this inspired you to create a DIY patio chair out of pallets. This is the most useful thing you can do with a pallet. This pallet was a bit long, so I trimmed off the top and removed an extra board and screwed that extra board to the bottom of the pallet. Next, I used 150 grit sandpaper to quickly sand the pallet. I placed it on a spacer to help hold it up, and then I fastened it to the side of our shed with screws, making sure it was level. I removed the spacer and loaded it up with my garden and yard tools. This is what the side of my shed looked like before, and this is how organized it is with my new DIY pallet tool organizer. What do you think? I hope this inspires you to get organized with pallets. I grabbed a free pallet for this genius garden hack. I used a hammer to remove some of the boards carefully. I left the nails in the boards so that I could use them again. I made 3 rows with 3 boards tight together on the bottom row, 2 boards together in the middle, and 2 boards near the top. The pallet was taller than I wanted, so I used a reciprocating saw to cut the extra off. I flipped the pallet over and followed the same pattern with 3 boards together on the bottom, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the top. I used all the leftover boards from this pallet, plus a couple extra scrap 1x4s. I cut more 1x4s to fill in the bottom of each section and secured it with 3 nails on the front, and then I flipped it over and I hammered in 3 nails on the back side. I gave the front a quick sand with 120 grit sandpaper using my palm sander. Next, I filled each section with soil and planted my favorite herbs. I used my Cricut to print stencils to paint labels for each section. When applying the stencil, I first sealed it with Mod Podge, and then I let it dry before painting with acrylic paint. Once the paint was near dry, I removed the vinyl and did some touch-ups with my black acrylic paint pen. And now I have the most beautiful herb garden that can also be hung on the wall. I hope this inspired you to create your own pallet herb garden.
I've got an eyesore in the front of my house, and it's my garbage can. I've got an inexpensive idea, and it happens to use pallets. What I'm going to do is get them squared up, and I want to make sure that they're just wide enough for the garbage can to go in and out without rubbing. Once I get it squared up and the sides are holding up pretty good, the next step is I got to cut some railings actually. These can be made out of 2x3s or 2x4s. Once they get cut, I'm going to measure about 7.5 inches down from the top. This is going to give me some good markings that I need to put each one on each side of the pallets. It doesn't take a lot of screws because not a lot of weight's going to go on there. Then I'm going to grab my reciprocal saw and I'm going to cut the less desirable pallet that's going to go on top. So all it takes is 3 good cuts. Once I do got this cut, what I can do is I could sand it down a little bit to make it look nicer, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and just slide it right on top. Take some care with this because when I put it on top, then I'm going to secure it with some screws. Once I got that, I want to go ahead and trim out the opening. I grabbed some old fence pallets that I had that were redwood, and I'm going to go ahead and just brad nail these on the top. I am also going to put it on the side. Now, it doesn't take a lot of nails to hold this in place because it doesn't weigh very much. So, once I get this on, I am going to go ahead and do the same on the sides. That way it looks more like a little bit of a door frame or anything when I put it on. Once it's all put together, then I can slide my garbage can in. Now, I want to decorate it. There's many options you can do. You can put some vines on the top around the sides, hang some pictures or anything like that. But I think it turned out really nice. Gets rid of that eyesore of just having the garbage can out front. I hope this motivated you to build your own inexpensive trash can enclosure. For today's project, I'm going to use this free pallet. Now, this is going to be a project you're going to want to wait to the end to see. I'm going to flip this over to the back because I need to cut it down because I only needed about 2/3 of its original size. Using a Sawzall, I'm going to cut the 3 main support beams right there. Once I get it cut, I'll separate it, and then I need to remove the boards that are in the middle, not the ones on the top and not the ones on the bottom. So I'm going to use a Wonder Bar here, pull it up, and they're pretty easy to take apart. Once you get most of the nails popped, just go ahead and pop it up. If there is any nails left over, you can just pull those over too. I go ahead and throw those away. They're just rusted old nails. Next, we're going to measure in between on the backside how much distance I need. This is going to need 2 support boards. Again, using recycled pallet boards from another pallet, I'm going to measure and cut these 2 boards. Now, when you are cutting pallet boards, be very careful where you cut. Sometimes there's staples and there's nails. So you want to make sure when there's little holes like that, you don't cut right down the middle. Once I get that cut, now I'm going to take the smaller pallet boards, and those are going to be my fillers. I'm going to cut all of those 40 inches wide because that's how wide the pallet is. I think I only need about 5 or 6, so I'll cut those down. Then I'll take the 2 support boards, and I'm going to measure and make sure they're about 7 inches from the end. Both these boards need to be the same distance. It's going to look very much better if you do that. Then I'm going to put the bottom and the top pallet board together. All you need is one little small screw to go through. Make sure the screw is not too long. We don't want it popping out. Now, go ahead and take all your pallet boards, put them in the middle, and you're going to even out the distance on the gaps, make it look really nice. Then you're going to just take a screw on each side of the support and put it together. Now it's time to see if it fits. I'm going to go ahead and set it right into place. And oh, I was so excited. It fit like a glove. That definitely deserves a thumbs up to the camera for this one. Next step is to go ahead and put some hinges on. Remember those support boards? Well, that's what these hinges are going to attach to. We're going to put those on just to make sure that we can open and close this door on the pallet. Use 2 hinges and look at that. It works amazing. I love it. Now we got to be able to secure the door. So just a little eye hook right there and put that in. And again, make sure you always pre-drill. Some of these boards are a little soft and we don't want to split them. So this one secures just right, and look at that. It's great. Also, I want to make sure when I open the pallet door that I don't open too far and it has a support. So I'm going to put these eye hooks in and I'm going to use a chain. Once you cut the chain to size, just use a pair of pliers to put it back. Now it's time to secure it to the wall. Be very safe when doing this. But once I got it secure, look at that. It closes right up and it doesn't stick too far out. But here comes the surprise. You're going to love this. Once it opens, it's your little old pallet bar. Isn't that great? Just makes a little table for anybody and everybody to enjoy. I love it. I can store my drinks inside. I even put a bottle cap opener. I hope you loved this project as much as I did making it. And I got to tell you, thank you for watching Home Talk, and we'll catch you next time.